Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting to the in-house relationship expert at Paired. We're chatting about what good and bad communication looks like, how the Paired app can help us tackle some of the big and small relationship topics, and the difference between affirmation and validation. But before we get into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
Oh, I had a few little micro fuel ups last week.
Oh yeah?
One of them, I had time at home alone. Oh my gosh. A lot of it last week relative to the rest of the last 2 years. Yeah, you went back to the office for 2 whole days.
I know I did. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
And you were out all weekend.
I was. Yeah, Saturday and Sunday, both days.
Yeah, and I just relished in my own environment on my own, me and the dog. It was great. It was so good. I don't think I realized how much I needed alone time. Hey, and it wasn't even as if I did anything wildly different than you being here, but it was just when the phone rang, I didn't have to put on headphones, and when I wanted to watch a video, I didn't have to put on headphones. It was a lot of not having to put on headphones. And I could listen to the music that I wanted to and not have to stop it anytime that you got on a very professional call. Yeah. So, and I really lent into finishing off a few courses and things that I'd been enrolled in for the year, and it was probably too much screen time, but yeah, so that felt really good too. And our year runs to the end of the season, so we're coming up on the end of the year of 2021 at the end of November, and there's 2 and a bit weeks to go or whatever. Might even be less than that now. Yeah, and there's a few things that I'm doing a little sprint on to get done. I set myself a goal at the beginning of the year that I wanted to read 2 books a month, and I've done that very consistently over the last probably 4 or 5 years. But I've got maybe 1 or 2 books behind. So I'm
You're
committed.
pretty close.
I'm committed. I'm going to get it done. So it was really nice to just spend some time on my own reading and just alone time, self-tank refueled by being alone. And I was chatting to my business partner, Dan, and he called me and he was like, "Oh, you sound happy." I was like, "Yeah, I'm home alone." He's like, "Have you got no pants on?" Clearly that's what he does when he's home alone. Clearly. Yeah, what about you? What fueled you up this last week?
Oh, I think mine was the absolute opposite. Well, the same thing and opposite to you. So
the gift of your absence.
yeah. Well, that was it. But no, just getting out and about in the world again. So yeah, heading into the office for the first time in quite a long time, actually. Heading in there for a couple of days. Yeah, and I got to meet a few new team members, which was really nice as well. I onboarded those people and helped recruit them, so it was really nice to actually meet them face to face for the very first time. And then on the weekend, as you mentioned already, I was out all weekend. I went to the car racing out at Eastern Creek, which was really good fun. Something that I love to indulge in every now and then.
Let your inner bogan out of his cage.
That's it. 1 weekend a year. It might be a little bit more often than that, but yeah, almost 1 weekend a year. So yeah, that was really nice to enjoy. Yeah, one of the things that I really love, really get excited about. But now, here's this week's guest.
Today we're welcoming Dr. Marisa T. Cohen. She is the in-house expert for Paired, an app designed to enhance communication between partners and help them learn more about their relationship. She's also a relationship researcher, psychology professor, and the author of From Kiss to Forever, A Scientific Approach to Love, a book that relates relationship science research to everyday experiences and real relationship issues confronted by couples. Welcome to the show, Marisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Marisa, how did you get interested in relationships?
Oh, wow. Big question, but important one. So I actually started my career out as a psychology professor, and I was hired to teach all of those classes that psychology majors have to take but don't usually love, like statistics, experimental psychology, research methods. And basically, I was just drawing from all the different subfields of psychology, just anything to really engage my students. So I would pull from educational psychology, neuropsychology, and I realized that as soon as I hit on relationships, that's when students got engaged. It was like answering those real questions they had about either the romantic relationships or just even the friendships that they had in their life. And from there, my career just kind of pivoted and I went full steam ahead into studying what makes couples successful.
Well, really, relationships is something that everybody is going to do at some point in their life. Well, especially romantic relationships, but even other relationships. Like everybody has to have relationships in their life.
Exactly. Whether it's, an attachment to a parental figure, if it's a work colleague, a friend, a romantic relationship. I mean, these are the bonds that help us feel secure. These are the bonds that really carry us through life.
Yeah. So you've written a book.
From First Kiss to Forever. Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah. So it's a book that it actually looks at relationships across the entire lifespan. So we start with early attachment to primary caregivers to factors of interpersonal attraction. So what really makes you interested in a potential partner? We go over things like early dating experiences to what makes successful bonds over time. And then we even cover things like infidelity and bereavement. So the entire span of a relationship. And the goal is really to take important relationship science principles and distill them in a way that you can get something out of it and use it and employ it with your partner.
Yeah, and what it looks like in practical, tactical, daily application.
Yeah, so that is the goal.
Yeah, so what actually happens in that first kiss? I know that there's some science there, right?
Yes. That first kiss, that's really, really important because you are essentially assessing qualities of this potential mate. And is this someone that you have chemistry with? Is this someone that you have desire with? And it's really important to remember that even the first kiss or a first dating experience, even though it's important, give people a little bit of leeway and don't, put all the pressure on that. Because if you think about how much anxiety sometimes people come into with these early dating experiences, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt because there is a lot of pressure on a lot of those firsts.
Yeah, I think our first kiss was definitely not our best kiss.
The alcohol may have affected that. But we can blame that anyway.
Not the nerves.
It could have been that too, yeah.
But it's a good story nonetheless. And it's something that's memorable because right away when you said our first kiss, it's like both of you kind of turned to each other and you had that like moment in your mind. So whatever it was a shared experience that the two of you have. And that in and of itself is pretty beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. And for our listeners, it was in a girls' toilet at closing time of the pub. And we were trying to hide from the security guards because we weren't quite ready to go home.
That is a memorable experience.
Yeah. And Nath is a very rule-following human. He respects all of the rules all of the time. And he was very uptight about the fact that he was in the girls' toilets.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about this app, Paired, because Nath and I are now members and users and we are very impressed. But for someone who's never heard of it before, give us the little spiel about what it is and what it does and why people should be using it.
Yeah. So Paired is an app that aims to strengthen relationships through daily conversations with your partner. And we have a lot of different facets to the app. So there's something for everyone. We have daily questions, which are essentially prompts that you can ask your partner and help you engage in conversation about topics that you may not have thought about before or topics that you've covered, but you want to go into a little bit in depth. We also have beyond the daily questions, we have question packs based upon themes. So we have question packs for people that are moving in together, question packs for people that are family planning, question packs for people who are trying to reignite the spark in their relationship. Besides that, we have tips, and our relationship tips are basically, distilling the science of relationships in ways that you can use this important science to enhance your partnership. And we have couple games, chats, a whole bunch of different functions. But the goal of all of it is to get you talking to your partner, get you to know your partner at a deeper level in every area. Like, we leave no stone unturned, whether it's intimacy, conflict, communication, like you name it, we're covering it because we want to help you build your relationship and strengthen it.
Yeah, awesome. And Marisa, what was your role in the development of that? Because I know you played a pretty key role.
Yeah, so I am the in-house relationship expert at Paired, and with them, I'm working on writing a lot of the tips. So a lot of the tips that you see come from me, and we would love to hear from any of the users or soon to be users if there's any tips that you feel like you want that we haven't yet covered, and I'll get right on it. Because we love that user feedback. That's really an important component to help us tailor the app. And I'm working to make sure that we really are having a psychological and scientific backing to the content that we're putting out there.
Yeah. So you mentioned that one of the key goals of the app is really to get people communicating. And we know that, like, even Nathan and I know this, we've only been sort of dabbling in this space for like 18 months or so. But that's the consistent thing is like, just have better communication, work on your communication. Like, that's such a fluffy kind of thing to say. What does good communication look like, sound like? What are the principles of it?
Yeah, I love that question. And, we talk about communication as being one of these foundations for building a strong relationship. But like, what does that mean? Because a lot of us think like, well, we communicate daily. I think I'm doing a pretty good job of it. But there are really some principles that you can help to make sure that you are communicating effectively with your partner. And this might still sound a little fluffy, but let's start general here. Open and honest communication is key. I think a lot of people sometimes get nervous when they think, if I'm sharing my needs or my wants, does that make me needy? No, it is important to be completely open with your partner and let them know what you're thinking. And it's communication might sometimes lead to disagreements. That is okay, because you need in a strong relationship a certain level of vulnerability. So you get to know one another at a deeper level. And if there are problems that arise or differences that kind of pop up in the course of communication, it's about being able to navigate them effectively. Things like using eye language and active listening and all of those wonderful like psych terms can really help to enhance the way that you get through disagreements and communicate effectively with one another.
Yeah. I really like that you stressing that part about asking for what you want or what you need. I don't know where I picked up this analogy, but the idea that you're in a restaurant and you want to adapt a item on the menu and the waiter can't possibly get your order right if you don't actually ask. And you might be surprised that they go, oh, actually, yeah, we can totally do that. And I'd love to help you get that outcome. Like the same with your partner. Like, I'm not sure if this is on the menu, but could we maybe X, Y, Z?
I love that. And any analogy that relates to food, I love that even more. So that's
yeah. Most of my analogies are about food.
Yeah.
But that's not an easy skill to build, is it?
No,
asking for what you want.
It's a challenge and it takes time. And there's so many different components that come into that. We are affected by our upbringing, our relationship with our family of origin. We are affected by our lived experiences and the communication that we've had with significant others in our life. And we build habits over time based upon these experiences. And each of these habits for some reason or another, we're under the impression like this is serving us well. So some of those habits, when you're with your partner, may need to be unlearned in order to communicate in a kinder and more effective way. Just a simple example is a lot of people, if they are used to like winning an argument, whatever that might look like, during a heated exchange, they might get to things like criticism or contempt, which are actually, if you know, John Gottman's work, who's an amazing relationship researcher, these are two of his 4 horsemen, criticism and contempt, where people will just kind of throw these out there during an argument, saying something like, you look like you're such a slob, or you're acting just like your mother. And the goal here is like to get to that Achilles heel of your partner, because you just kind of want to end that argument, prove your point, and that is your agenda. And that may have served you well in the past. And it's a habit, and trying to undo that and form new habits and communicate in a different way can be very, very challenging. But if you have a partner who's in it with you and working with you to cultivate better habits over time, it makes it so much more pleasant.
So how can we start to identify in ourselves if we are using some of those 4 horsemen, like the criticism, contempt?
Yeah. So let me go through them like really quickly with you, because actually what some research has found is that just being educated on the 4 horsemen and what they are really helps to build an awareness. And, you know, one thing that I want to put out there for anyone listening is you will hear these and you will probably recognize a few of them, if not all of them, that you do. It is okay. That first piece is the awareness. And like I said, it will take a while to kind of untrain yourself from using these in your communication. But again, just being aware of them, knowing what they are, is that first most important step. So, well, just to kind of back up, John Gottman in his work on the 4 horsemen basically says that it's not even so much what we're arguing about that matters. It's more so how we're arguing. So when you're employing these 4 horsemen, that's when a conversation or an argument can devolve from being something that might otherwise be productive and constructive to something that can be kind of damaging. So real quick, the 4 horsemen are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Criticism, attacking your partner's character. You're such a slob. Contempt, it's criticism coming from a place of superiority. So think like criticism with a bit of sarcasm on top. You sound just like your mother, if that's intended to hurt your partner. The next one is defensiveness. And defensiveness is, rather than taking ownership for whatever it is that you might have done wrong, you deflect and you throw it back on your partner. So an example is, let's say you left the dishes in the sink. You know, well, what did you expect me to do? You took forever getting ready in the morning. I had to leave the dishes in the sink. The last one is stonewalling. And many people have probably heard of the fight or flight response, which is basically like when you see something, you get ready to either fight or flee a situation. And it's actually not just fight or flight, but it's fight, flight, or flood. Fight, flight, or flood, which is when you completely shut down. That's stonewalling. So if you are the stonewaller, it's basically when you shut down in an argument, you look like you're not processing anything, because in that moment, you're not. So the person's just completely like overcome with emotion that they just shut down. So what does the other person usually do? They get louder, they get angrier, and this escalates the argument even more. And it takes it to kind of an unhealthy place. So that's just kind of like a very simplified version of those 4 horsemen. And just simply being aware of them, your first step.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing your partner demonstrate some of these, what's the appropriate way to like call them out and be like, you're really just given a lot of criticism right now, or I can see you stonewalling. Like, I don't know, is there good language to use around that to bring attention and hold up the mirror for your partner?
Yeah. So every couple's a little bit different. And when you first start trying to become more aware of these, it's usually better if each person kind of monitors their own behaviors and which ones are kind of throwing out. Because as you can imagine, in the middle of a heated argument, if all of a sudden you're just like, criticism, you're doing it now, you're criticizing me, that could just like, that takes yeah, stonewalling.
Well, that's
one
criticism
point.
in itself, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like you're keeping a little tally. That can escalate it to a whole other level. So it's really just trying to be mindful for yourself. But if a person isn't aware of it, this is when once the emotion or that physiological arousal level is kind of down after that heated discussion, argument, debate, whatever you want to call it, is over, that's when you engage in a conversation and you use things like I language, which basically means, and just so you know, I language or I statements, some people call it, that's essentially the antidote for both criticism and contempt, which basically means you focus on the behavior rather than the person. So when you say things to me like, you're such a slob, I feel upset because I'm really self-conscious about my neatness, my habits. Yeah, exactly. The fact that I leave things everywhere. But it's letting your partner know what it is that you're upset about. Because you might think they know. You might just say, you're such a slob. And it's like, wait, what did I do? So it's sharing what that behavior is and giving them an insight into how you're feeling, what you're thinking, what emotions are surrounding that. And it's helpful. It provides them with knowledge, which is very powerful. So using that I language at a time when you're not quite feeling so like heated, that's really also helpful. Like I said, for criticism and contempt. For defensiveness, main thing is own it. Own what you do wrong. You're going to do something wrong at some point. Your partner's going to do something wrong. If you own what you do wrong, you shift the culture of the relationship and people are going to be better at like, you're right. I left the dishes in the sink. You're right. I forgot to move the car and I wound up getting a ticket. Like whatever it is, you'll be better able to just accept faults because we all make mistakes and that's okay. And the last one, and this is hard for a lot of people, to really counteract if you're a stonewaller or you're someone who gets stonewalled, the person who's experiencing that flooding got to take a break. You got to get to that place where you're feeling more composed, where you're feeling like you can have a conversation and you're not just completely shut down. And that's a challenge for many people because you might have where one person's stonewalling and the other person's just like ready and rearing to go and they want to find solutions to the problem right now. And it's hard to overcome that tendency. But if you are able to communicate, I need a break. I'm not shutting off the conversation. I'm not shutting you down. In this moment, we're not going to get anywhere. So give me whatever you need, insert time, 20 minutes, 2 hours, walk around the block, whatever it is, and then we'll have the conversation and it'll be much more productive.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the Paired app is that it allows time for each partner kind of individually look through a topic while you're also not triggered, but look through a topic, kind of answer the questions for yourself, have that time to kind of process something, and then you can kind of come together and actually discuss it. So.
Yeah. And then the good thing about it too is that you can search for things that you might perceive of are pain points in your relationship. Like, maybe we're having trouble with the influence of family and friends. Like, let's seek out some tips or questions or question packs around family and friends. And you can go through essentially a guided series of questions to have these discussions either in real time or to answer. And it will ping your partner to let your partner know, so-and-so has answered a question. Now it's your turn. So you can either intentionally seek things out that you perceive of you need to strengthen, or you can just go through those questions and it might bring up a lot for you where you're just like, you know what? We haven't had discussions about this before. We should. Yeah. This is important.
Yeah,
and sometimes I feel like the absence of the conversation is almost hiding that there is a potential problem or a hurdle up ahead.
Yes. I love that statement so much. When I do talks, I'll occasionally have people, and I spend a lot of time talking about communication because I do think it's such a foundational component of a relationship. And inevitably communication turns into conflict and people will come up to me and they'll say, well, I've never had a disagreement, or we've never had to talk about serious issues. And I'll smile. But inside, I'm really thinking, okay, if you're not having those conversations, it's just, you're just avoiding the topic. At some point, it's either bound to come up. And if it's not coming up, is it that you're just really staying at a very surface level? Because life throws all sorts of things at us, and it's getting to know your partner's worldview, your partner's vision for not only your relationship, but for their future. It's important.
Yeah. Hey, Marisa, we've heard you talk a little bit about the difference between validation versus affirmation. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So a lot of people conflate the two, and they think the validation, affirmation, kind of the same thing. And for those of you who have taken, Gary Chapman's love language quiz, which is like the 5 different love languages, one of the big ones that he puts in there is words of affirmation. And listen, I think affirmation is great. I'm not knocking that. You should always affirm your partner, but there is a difference. It's a subtle difference, but it's a really, really important one. In that affirmation, you are basically agreeing with your partner. Or it's like, you were saying like, what you think, it is true. And okay, that's great, but it's not always going to happen. You're not always going to be able to affirm your partner. There are going to be times when view something differently. And that's where validation comes into play. So with validation, it is, I am acknowledging what you are saying. This is your feeling, your thought, your belief. I don't necessarily need to share it, but I am noting it. So your partner really, when you validate them, feels heard, feels understood, and you're normalizing that it's okay to have differences of opinion.
Yeah, no, I really love that. Yeah, we're not always going to agree on everything. And so, just acknowledging that you do have a difference of opinion and that your opinion is still valid and things like that, I think that is really important.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know, something that seems to come up a lot for people is just even roles and responsibilities in the home and kind of navigating that. And if you have one person who likes to keep everything extremely like tidy and neat, and the other person who's just kind of like, we'll wait till we see dust balls kind of, sweeping around the carpet and then we'll start to clean. And that's going to be most likely in many cases a perpetual problem. This is going to be something because you have completely different views. It's not going to be easy to you might try to create a chore wheel and come to some sort of compromise, but chances are this is going to be something you're going to keep butting heads about. So validating your partner would be telling them, I understand, or I hear you when you say it is really, really important to clean up everything or to have a very, very neat space. And I hear and see and validate that this is something that matters to you. I'm completely different. I might be the messy one, but this is important to you and I am acknowledging that.
And I think that gives you a good footing to be able to then kind of work through a solution for that too. It's like, well, I know that I know that you like to be more tidy than I am, but what can we do to kind of either find some middle ground, or can we get a cleaner in so that we don't, if I hate cleaning, I don't want to clean, or what's the solution, or what can we do to really move forward?
Exactly. Because when you say something like that, it's, you hear me, you are acknowledging what I said, versus a lot of times when we communicate, it's just like, come on, that's ridiculous. We don't need to clean things the minute, they're out of place. We could just let it go a couple of days. It's not that big a deal. And we're trying to maybe assert our point or, get the person to come over to our side and see our point of view. But it's not about trying to convince someone. I mean, you may want to say this is how I feel, but we don't always have to convince someone. It's, this is how you view it. And I'm acknowledging that. And that also creates or rather opens a door for people to be able to have a productive conversation where they don't feel like they need to defend themselves or defend their viewpoint. It's like, all right, I'm glad that you're acknowledging or validating what I said.
And that I think you said it in there as this isn't a big deal, or I don't understand why this is such a big deal. I feel like that's poison. in a relationship.
Yeah, it trivializes your view. And it might not be a big deal to one person, but to the other person, that is everything. It's like, and I'm not the neat one, so this is going to be kind of hard for me to make up off the top of my head. I could just be like, well, neatness is important because this is how I have to organize my life because, I don't know, again, I'm not the neat one, so it's hard for me to even justify that.
Yeah, but I think like the question of like, can you help me understand why this is important? Like, can you help me? I need more information, or I need to understand why you want it this way. And I think sometimes if we understand the why for our partner, and it might be, like we said earlier on, like as a child, I was always in trouble if things were not neat and tidy. So I'm programmed to control my environment, or what, I'm making that up.
That's great.
Whatever it might be.
That's a good, that would track.
Yeah, taking the time to understand why something is important to your partner, not just, I like it that way because I like it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, and it's also being open to exploring the possibilities and realizing that there aren't always going to be answers. Because that was actually a really great explanation that you just kind of gave, like, maybe when I was younger, this is the repercussions that occurred if I didn't have a neat room. But I don't know why. Sometimes you're going to get that. I don't know why this is important, but it is important to me. And that may feel frustrating for a person not having that why, but at least if you validate the feeling, validate the emotion, validate the belief, the thought, together you can explore it. And it leaves a door open for that understanding.
Yeah.
I love that.
Hey, Marisa, this has been such a beautiful conversation. To round us kind of out, I would love to know, maybe either from your personal experience or from your research, what would you say is a number one top tip, something you'd recommend for couples to watch, read, listen, do to help keep their relationship fueled up?
There's so many. All right. To distill it down to one.
Maybe pick a like uncommon one. Pick one that when you say it to groups, they go, oh, no pressure.
I know, no pressure at all. This is probably one that you've heard before, but I'm going to say it just because it seems small, but it can have such a large impact. Express gratitude. Express gratitude to your partner for things big and small, whatever that might be. Because over time, as we get comfortable with one another, sometimes we forget to do it, or we're under the perception that maybe our partner knows what I'm grateful for. And it can be everything from I'm grateful for what a caring partner you are, or for how wonderful of parent you are to our children, to I'm grateful for you making a cup of coffee for me in the morning. So express gratitude.
Yeah, I love that.
So important. I love that you make me coffee. Thank you.
I haven't made one yet today, though. But
Not yet, but it's coming.
coming.
Marisa, this has been so lovely. Thank you so much. To say thank you for joining us, we've given 100 days of medication to nursery school children in Ethiopia. Helping get them set up with good health from the early stages of their life is really important. So we've made this possible via our partnership with Buy One, Give One. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
No worries. So Marisa, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about the Paired app, how should they do that?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with Paired, check out our app on the App Store, Paired, or you can go to the website, which is getpaired, GETPAIRED.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Marisa.
Thank you.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.